drips away, days burn, disintegrate, years roll along and fade, don't let them slip away. Right here, right now, today, these are the good old days. Right here, right now, today, hey, these are the good old days.
All right, we are ready to go here, bringing everybody in. We got Zazel, we got Phil, we got Ken, and we got Ryan. And we are just ready to go here with everybody for StreamYard. This is my first StreamYard ever, so we're going to make sure we get that done right. We are Streamathon Hour 5. So if you are still here, like, hats off to you guys who are here. Let's check out the chat. We've got Happy Accident is here. I wonder if he intentionally wanted to be in any of these streams or if it was all just happy accidents all night. We got Hans Chow. He's been here since the get-go. Gaz is just killing it.
He's a trooper.
Jason Stitwell, welcome to the show. Nolan, again, happy birthday to Nolan.
Yep.
Happy birthday, buddy.
Happy birthday,
You are all
Nolan.
set here. We've got
Cheers,
this fine-looking fellow here, Sergeant Slaughterhouse. Ryan Sweeney, time for the MOTU fans. You got it, buddy. This is what's happening. We're going to MOTU this place up. We've got James Ratface is here.
Sup.
And we have the Dragon Balls. Let's go. Let's do this thing. So first off, before we get going with our picks here, and ultimately start making fun of Ken for his pick, whatever that is.
He doesn't even know what
It never fails, does it?
Right?
Oh,
We got peppermint oil capsule here.
Who's
Just
the
strapping a
commander?
rocket to us. Rocket strap
Rocket
coming
man.
on. Guys, what was your first intro to Masters of the Universe? So, to me as a kid, it was a great line to collect. It's the most fun line I'm having collecting as an adult. I think I'm 6 figures away from being done all the figures. And it's been a joy to revisit that line. But what was your first love of Masters of the Universe? We'll start with Ryan. Go for it, my friend.
You're on mute, Ryan.
Oh, Ryan, I think you're muted, my friend.
See, I was just so excited just to share it. The first one that I remember, it was Stratos and Manny Faces were my first two MOTU figures, and I absolutely adored them.
Yeah.
He-Man, of course, but just those wackiness of those two were awesome.
Yeah. What about you, my friend Ken? And if you say a classics figure, I'll be very upset.
Yeah, well, what if I was to say I didn't know what MOTU was and I looked it up just for the purpose of the stream? You'd probably believe me, but that wouldn't actually be true. I mean, I got into it like even before I came to Canada. Like the short time I lived in the Philippines, I have memories being 3-4 years old, playing with these figures and bringing them over to my grandma's house. And they kind of coincide with superpowers and Transformers as my earliest memories. But I had more time in those earliest years playing with MOTU just because I just loved the whole transformation from Adam to He-Man. Now, it didn't stay with me over the years. It was the other toy lines that stayed with me more. But as I started to get into things like you mentioned, you know, the cuss word there, classics that we're not supposed to talk about, but that got me back into MOTU yet again. So just early memories and the fact that the franchise has lived on.
Yeah.
And we don't want to debate the classics, okay? I'm just saying. We've been there, done that.
Phil, my friend, tell me your first memory, your first love of MOTU.
Well, MOTU is my first love. The first action figures I remember having as a kid. So Star Wars was just a little bit before my time. So yeah, MOTU is number one. And I think Triclops was the first figure that I got from my parents. So I've got a very strong nostalgic association with Triclops. And yeah, I just remember getting MOTU under the Christmas tree, and I just absolutely loved it. I loved the cartoon series and how goofy it was, and loved Skeletor. I still do, and I'm starting to get into the Origins figures now. So I'm not a modern figure collector, but the MOTU Origins has been the one that I've gone, yep, I can't pass these up because they just they bring back so many good memories for me. So yep, a huge MOTU fan.
I love that. All right, my man Zazel, what is your first MOTU love?
Well, look, I think Master of the Universe is quite like Star Wars, where I can't really pinpoint where it began. It was just always there. I don't remember a first figure. I remember getting specific figures. Like my grandfather got me Man at Arms because I was a big Man at Arms fan.
Yep.
And whether or not he knew or whether or not Mum gave him the tip, when I got to see my grandfather on a Christmas visit, he had it there waiting for me. That's just a great memory of getting my favorite figure from a loving grandparent and associating that with just awesome childhood memories. As far as my latest collection goes, a lot of this, there's a Castle Grayskull behind me. I say this all the time, is that I blame Ken for my resurgence in Masters of the Universe. In fact, that's my new obsession at the moment. It's G.I. Joe. Any G.I. Joe that fits in the slaughterhouse enters my collection, but absolutely every Masters of the Universe origin figure makes it into my collection.
Yeah.
And I blame Ken for that. But it's when I say that, I mean that with love, though, because it's really ignited my love for Masters of the Universe. I've always liked it. I think I always had a certain love for it, but now it's elevated it. And Origins is a perfect way for an adult collector to get back into it, because it has that level of nostalgia attached to it, because I look very close to what you originally had.
Yeah.
But it adds something to it. And while I never had an issue with there not being knee or elbow articulation, it just adds to it. It just adds to that. Yeah. Well, if you're going to re-release it, add to it.
I will say, Ken made a comment in our G.I. Joe stream about the attraction for G.I. Joe being part of the articulation. I was so articulated. And I don't think we looked at figures back in the day as being how much articulation do they have? Is it 5? Is it 7? It's just they were different. G.I. Joe's had a bunch of articulation. He-Man had weird leg bands and twisty. It wasn't that it was different, not at the same amount. It was just different. It was just that different figures were, right? And we didn't care. We didn't compare them. It was just like, oh, my superpowers have knees and my Secret Wars don't. And that's okay, because they just exist on their own. And it wasn't a comparison thing. It was just, that's what they were. So Masters, weird articulation and construction, that's just what they were.
That's just what they were. Yeah.
Yeah. My first love was, watching the show. That's how I got into it. And then I remember being in Zellers one time and seeing a bin at the front of the store that was sale. And I was allowed to pick one, and just like digging and rifling and finding a Battle Armor He-Man, and just being like the whole way home, not opening it because I didn't want to lose the sword. And it was an hour-long trip just staring at that figure. So it was, since then it hasn't left me. It's been, one of my all-time favorite properties and toy lines since then. And once I started the channel, and it kind of gave me an excuse to collect them again, I was full force, full speed ahead.
Full force.
Yeah. So Hans Jous's first figure is He-Man, the first classic He-Man. My second was Skeletor. My third was Tila. Fourth was Beastman. And Mother was very methodical. Good guy, bad guy. Miss you, Mom. Hans, that's adorable. You got a good mom there. Give a salute to Hans's mom. I love that.
I think Thunder Punch He-Man was my He-Man. I had the original He-Man, and we had pretty much every He-Man. But Thunder Punch was my favorite. Just the caps in the back. Oh, the smell of it is like pop a cap. Good stuff.
So you're gonna like an upcoming video I have called Wonder Punch He-Man coming up.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And that is a great name for I like it.
Mattel, if you're listening, just give me a call.
We'll
talk about Wonder
This guy
Punch.
knows what's up. Yeah.
This is right here. So anyways, we'll go through again, Zazel, as you said. It's a bit odd the way that they import the pictures in, so we're just going to kind of go with whatever comes up. All right, so I'm not sure which order these are going to be in, but when you see one you kind of recognize, Ken, just let us know. All right, bud.
All right.
Okay. So first up, we have Zazel with Too Bad. So give us your rundown here, sir.
Adam, is there a way in the section on the side there to get rid of the live with StreamYard so that you're not underneath it? Or
you know what? I think it's because he's using the standard the free version, so there's no way to actually turn that off.
I could just go like this.
You might be able to go into your banners and make it smaller.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just
go to the banners
here
and see if you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
While you're figuring that out, I'll start talking about Too Bad. Too Bad was one of those ones that I do remember specifically picking out off the toy shelves. The thing about that Too Bad that stood out for me was that it was basically two characters in one. It had a gimmick that you could either put someone in a headlock or you could make them look like they're punching themselves. But I can't remember what they were later given in the, I think, 2000X series. They gave them different identities. But for me, and I believe originally it was supposed to be one good guy, one bad guy stuck together, which is pretty cool. Like that Megatron and Ratchet when they were stuck together.
Yep.
Cool stuff. Anyway, but for me, Too Bad he was unique. He came with a shield, but obviously he can't hold any swords or anything because it's just the way that the hands are done. But I thought it was unique enough to really stand out as having a two characters, weird gimmick. It just the idea of it alone sparks your imagination. Like, how do these guys get merged together? What's their deal? The blend of purple and blue, I think, really jump out. If they made an Origins version of this, I would jump at it. I almost picked up a Too Bad recently, but I instead grabbed the Ultimate Warrior from the Masters of the WWE Universe. There was a toss-up between Too Bad and that, and I went with that because I'm hoping that Too Bad will come out again as an Origin figure. But yeah, underrated because I don't hear a lot about Too Bad. I hear a lot about Merman. I hear a lot about Beastman, Hordak, Skeletor, literally everyone before you get to Too Bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, Too Bad is too good.
Very good. Now, did you have the flat back or the round back version?
I don't know, man. I can't remember. In fact, I didn't even know that was a thing until very recently.
Okay.
So I'm not sure. I don't think it was a flat back because it doesn't stand out to me as the chest was very prominent. And I don't know if that makes a difference to whether the back was rounded as well. But I know that there were some indentations for the chest armor, and some were more protruding, and I believe mine were protruding more in the diamond pattern on the armor. But I can't be for certain for sure. But either one, I was wouldn't have bothered me either way. It was and the gimmick wasn't too intrusive. Yeah, because it just sort of it added to the play. As opposed to some other gimmicks which can subtract. I think this one added to it.
All right. So what are your thoughts, Phil, on Too Bad?
Yeah, I've got a Too Bad here as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I love Too Bad as well. I just love the colors. I'm big on colors, and the purple and the blue together just looks outstanding. I didn't have Too Bad as a kid. I don't remember having Too Bad. I think, again, it may be slightly later on, perhaps. But I've grown to appreciate Too Bad, and definitely one of my favorite figures that I've picked up for sure. And Zazel said if they bring out an Origins Too Bad, that is going to be bloody wicked. So
yeah.
Fingers crossed that happens. I'm sure it will. It looks like Origins are going to bring out everything.
And then some.
And then some, with extras. So
is yours flat back, Phil, or no?
Yeah, mine's got a flat chest, flat back. Yeah. A surfboard back. So.
Is there a preference for collectors?
I looked online. I maybe someone in the chat can correct me, but I thought the rounded back may be slightly more harder to come by. Maybe the flat back's more common.
Yeah, I think the flat back was first, and then the second run was the round back.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I've got them both just because it's fun to have them both.
Yeah.
But Ken, what are your Too Bad thoughts?
I would say underrated, just because it's one of those toys that it stands out when you see it, but you don't necessarily think of it first when you're thinking Masters of the Universe. Like, your brain goes all over the place first, and then you go, oh yeah, that's kind of a cool character. Yeah, it was cool because he could punch himself. He was always arguing with himself. Like, it's such a simple concept. Sure. It's one of those things that you you pick it up and you go, this is kind of neat. Then you kind of hope the spring action still works when you grab it at a toy show. So for me, it's definitely underrated for that purpose. Just it didn't get enough attention just because it got lost in the shuffle with all the other main characters.
Yeah. What about yourself, Mr. Dreadnought?
This was the last MOTU figure I ever bought.
Nice.
There you go.
So I absolutely love this figure. The cartoon was fun, but I loved the fact that when I first got He-Man, it came with those little comic books, and it was just like perfect way of starting the story. But yeah, I remember picking him up at it was either Kmart or Kresge's in Michigan here, and just blown away with how the action feature worked on the punching fists.
Yeah. So I in my latest video I released about restoring a King Randor, one of the things I say is that I love the He-Man figures that stuck to the original formula of that body mold and that look like they're part of the line. And Too Bad is the one that really doesn't do that, but still fits in the line. Like you look at him and he's got the right legs, he's got the right waist, and you just say like, this is that mold, but done to look like a two-headed man. So I think 100%. He's remembered as the guy who punches himself in the face. That's what he's remembered by lots of people as. But he is so much more. And I think that he is maybe the best sculpted figure of the old MOTU line. Like I think they really went for it, and not only gave him one body, but they went back and did it again to make it a little bit better. So I would say absolutely underrated for this guy. Hard thumbs up for Too Bad on me.
2 thumbs up.
2 thumbs way up for Too Bad.
You see that, Gas? Not just 1 thumb, but 2 thumbs.
2 thumbs, incredibly up.
For you, Gas.
Yeah, no, in this picture, I didn't. Man of Actions asked me where his shield is. I didn't put a picture of his shield in here because I kept covering his beautiful face. So that's why he's not there. All right, so next up we have, we have mine up next. There we go. So mine was Fisto, and I think that as 2022 adult collectors, we're all holding back giggles because people like to make the easy joke about Fisto, right? We don't need to go into it, but it's low hanging fruit. It's the easy joke to make. However, when it came to He-Man, when you play with your friends, I often say whoever had home court advantage got to be He-Man. So you had all your He-Man figures. If I went to Zazel's house, Zazel got to be He-Man. It was an unwritten rule. It's just what it was. Fisto was one of the only other like humans in the line. So you had Man-at-Arms, who was like the second in command, and then later you had Randor. And you could say you had Jitsu and Ninjor on the evil side, but Fisto was like the only human that was on the good side. He also was the only other guy on the good side that had a sword, right? In a line basically made on sword play, He-Man had a sword and Fisto had a sword. So he was always my go-to. I love that he had a backstory. Like, how did he lose his hand? Is it a robot hand? Like, what's going on there? So he just seemed like the everyman's average soldier who'd seen some stuff, but was able to sword fight. And so for me, he was always if I couldn't be He-Man, I was Fisto. And I think it's a shame that we just, as adult collectors, make fun of him so much.
He's actually probably got to be in my top 3 favorite characters, Fisto.
Nice.
I like that he's got a counterpart as well in Jitsu.
Yep.
It's a shame they didn't call him Slapsu because of the slapping hand. But Fisto, I remember getting Fisto. I remember loving Fisto. Giving him different hands would probably change the name of Fisto. But overrated maybe. But I think as far as you got to appreciate a man with an epic beard, and I do that. Maybe I've modeled my hairstyle after Fisto and didn't really appreciate it at the time. But top tier character in my opinion. One of my top 3, Man-at-Arms being 2. If I got to narrow it down to 3, I mean maybe Buzz-Off. He was pretty cool.
Yep.
But yeah, Fisto, Zazel's twin, right?
I was waiting for that.
Yeah.
It seems every toilet we talk about has a Zazel twin.
I know, right? Yeah, this is it.
All right, call me Fisto.
All right. Your thoughts on Fisto, Phil?
To be honest, I wasn't a big Fisto fan when it sounds silly. I wasn't a big
Just
Fisto
breathe
fan when I was
easy.
a kid. Um, I tended to go towards the evil characters. So, in terms of picking Fisto or Jitsu, I would go for Jitsu over Fisto.
Mhm.
But yeah, I've grown to appreciate Fisto as I've gotten older. Maybe it is because it resembles me of Zazel, perhaps. I don't know. It's a bit desperate, isn't it? But he look. I like the color of his chest plate there, and
Yep.
is that the same sword that Triclops has, just a different color?
Absolutely. Yes, it is.
It
Yeah.
looks very similar to Triclops' sword. So I guess that's another bonus point for me because I'm a huge Triclops fan. But yeah, I would say he's underrated. He wasn't a favorite when I was younger, but yeah, he's cool. I like him.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of comments that in the 2000X show, he was actually Man-at-Arms' brother and Tila's real dad. So that was they expanded his story a little bit in the Mike Young Productions show.
Yeah, nice.
Ken, what
G'day,
are your Fisto thoughts?
Fisto. So if you're just talking the original line, I would say he's a little bit underrated. If I recall, he was sold with Stridor, right? So if they were
and
sold,
separately.
oh, they
And
were also
separately.
sold separately. Okay, so if they were sold together, then it's hard to kind of say he's underrated because he comes with a mount. It's not like He-Man and Battle Cat were usually sold separately. Though I remember later on you could get them as a 2-pack. In the Mike Young Productions, they expand, like people in the chat are saying, quite a bit on Fisto. So I would say to us collectors, he's rated right where he needs to be. Maybe when we were younger, he was a bit underrated for exactly the reasons you said. Whoever had home court advantage got to be He-Man. So you got to choose who would go against him. And this guy had a big enough sword and a big enough fist to go up against He-Man. So I don't know. I think he's rated just right for collectors today. In that context.
Yeah. What I'm looking to finish finding the pieces, but I want to make a pre-Fistoed Royal Guard version of Fisto, where he's in the Man-at-Arms armor and standing beside his brother.
Yeah,
Yeah. Ryan, you have any Fisto thoughts for us?
I love this figure. When I had him, he was always that, He-Man would fight somebody and Fisto was the guy he would challenge in my barbarian type mind. I used to put Fisto on Panther, actually.
Oh, nice.
As his steed.
Yes.
And he would fight everybody because he was just, a BA like He-Man was. So it was a great figure. The head sculpt was great. If I'm remembering right, the fist would pop off because it was just like a plug on.
Yep.
I always thought that was kind of cool too, that, he could fake like his hand got chopped off and that's when he had to put the metal fist on. So
Beautiful.
He-Man is just always a great toy line.
Oh, it's incredible. It really is. Yeah. So Peppermint Oil Capsule says, yeah, I received a Strider for Christmas one year, but never had Fisto. Must have been sold separately, even as an expansion. So he was sold separately, and he was sold with them together. They could have either one. So up next we have Ram Man from Phil.
What a great figure!
Yes.
Yeah, I've picked Ram Man. I hated Ram Man when I was a kid. I honestly thought he was the worst figure. I said to my mother, whatever you do, do not buy me a Ram Man, because he just looks so un-MOTU like. Obviously, as you mentioned before about the sculpts and stuff, this was a completely different looking character, and the fact that his legs are sort of meshed together and things like that. I was not a fan at all. But coming back to collecting MOTU in more recent years, I've begun to really appreciate Ram Man, and he just looks fantastic on the shelf. He really does stand out. And because I live in Japan, we're earthquake prone here, so we get a lot of earthquakes, and my bloody MOTU collection is always the first one to fall over because they're so unstable. But Ram Man is the one that always stays standing up. So he is my hero of my MOTU collection in Japan because he's so sturdy. So yeah, was not a fan at all when I was a kid, but now I absolutely adore him. So that's why he's my underrated figure. I don't know. The kids that I used to play with when I was younger also weren't Ram Man. I don't remember any kids having Ram Man when I was younger. So yeah, wasn't popular. I don't think, not in my neighborhood anyway.
Okay, Zazel, any Ram Man thoughts?
Ram Man, Fisto, come on, Mattel, get your minds out of the gutter. This guy reminds me of the Hasbro WWF figures, where they built wrestling gimmicks over around the character. This one feels like because the springy thing, it feels like they've got a gimmick and they're going to build a character around that gimmick, as opposed to having any real reason. I'm with Phil in that it doesn't. I mean, now it's like synonymous with Masters of the Universe. Everyone knows Ram Man, but I never had a Ram Man, and the reason why I didn't have a Ram Man is because he didn't really fit in well for me in Masters of the Universe. The same reason why when I was collecting the Hasbro WWF figures, I never picked up any of the ones that had that spring gimmick, because I just didn't think that they looked right. I only wanted the guys that had that they could fit in better with whatever other action figure I had at the time. So, proper versions of Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan or whatever. Anyone that had a spring-loaded one was like, no, out.
Yeah.
So Ram Man, while I will say he's iconic, he's not a must-have. I do have the Origins version though, which I'll give that a pass because I'm a sucker. So I had to have one. The belt buckle was pretty cool. The helmet design makes sense. It's kind of like Juggernaut, but for MOTU. So is it I would definitely say that it is underrated because I don't rate it. So yeah, I don't think it's anyone's top pick.
No,
unless you have an association with it.
Yeah. Ken, any thoughts on Ram Man?
I'm glad Zazel brought up the word association, because this might be the first time today I'm going to say overrated. And it has to do with just how you're wired, your personal memories with it. And I know we have banned the classics word from this particular chat, but we're going to unban it for the purpose of this story. Is that when I went back and started collecting classics, it was already after the line they were well into the Super 7 era and out of the Matty Collector era. Well, you try to look at the price of a Ram Man, it's obscenely high. And when I finally got around to getting one, I ended up, it was only because the person was local, I didn't have to pay shipping, and I paid an obscenely crazy price on it. So for me, because of that reason, like not even because of the character, but because of what I had to pay to get the classics version in my collection, it feels a little bit overrated, and I'm still a little sore that I didn't get it when he was a bit cheaper, because I just wasn't into classics yet. And I can't remember why his classics figure costs so much. Because some of them just go way up and some of them are still reasonable. So I can't look at this through anything other than whatever the I was going to say the anti-rose colored glasses, but I guess we're going to say the sourpuss glasses is what I'm looking at Ram Man with right now. So it's overrated for my own pissed off sourness of paying probably double what I think he was worth, even if it was market price at the time.
Okay. Ryan, what do you have to say about Ram Man, my friend?
So when I was born, I know Ken calls it the golden age, but TV had just really come around, and if you had a friend who knew how to tune in all the pay channels, you could get them for free. So we had all of those free channels. So there was a movie called Beastmaster with Mark Singer.
Yes. Talking about Beastmaster all day long.
And then there was also Conan the Barbarian. So Ram Man to me was like one of the executioners from that movie, and I absolutely adored him. The gimmick, it's a gimmick, but he was always like my executioner, because I would always go back to those sword and sorcery type movies that I'd watch, and it was just like he was the perfect guy who was going to chop off all the people's heads. So
I was today years old when I realized he looks just like Thulsa Doom in the first scene from Conan the Barbarian when he kills Conan's parents. He's got like the same helmet on. That's crazy. No, 100%. I would say those sword and sorcery movies from the 80s, directed my MOTU play more than the MOTU show did because it was kind of silly.
Yep.
But I would say that Ram Man for me was a waste of a figure. Like if I was going to get one figure, he couldn't do much. And then in the show, he was kind of a goofy character. So I actually never had him as a kid, and I never had any desire for him as a kid. And he was one of the guys when I was rebuilding my collection now, I was like, well, I guess I got to get a Ram Man. So I got him and I restored this. Actually, a really good friend of mine gave me a Ram Man, and I restored him up, and he looks great on the shelf. But for me, he is he's synonymous with MOTU, but I think he's overrated myself. We got a lot of Beastmaster love happening in the chat right now.
Yep.
Oh man,
such a great movie.
I think so. I'm on record.
I wonder if it was.
So I was on the Geeks Unleashed podcast.
I wonder.
You two specifically are on a delay with each other.
Yeah,
somehow.
You go, Zazel. Say what you're going to say.
I was going to say, I wonder if it was Conan and Beastmaster that actually sparked the interest for me in Masters of the Universe, because I definitely have fondness for those movies. So it wouldn't surprise me if that was the association when I first started picking them up.
Yeah, I was on the Geeks Unleashed podcast recently, and we talked about the Masters of the Universe '87 movie, and then we talked about what it would look like to make one today. And I said it's a shame that if they made one today, that it would be like lots of CGI, kind of Avengers looking, and be this big multi-million-dollar thing. What all they really need to do is make a Beastmaster movie on a Beastmaster budget, and just put a little bit of coloring in it, and really just do a film like that and call it He-Man. It's so close to He-Man. Just make the tiger green and change his outfit a little bit, and you're there. And all those movies hold up so well because they were shot real. Like they just really built a town and really filmed the guy with a sword, and that's why they look so good today. So I hope that whoever's making the new He-Man movie looks at Beastmaster and says that's what we need to do right there. But all that to say, Ram Man, we have opinions on him. So lots of Beastmaster chat. So next up we have Mr. Ken with Randor, King Randor.
What? I thought
your underrated figure was King Randor.
Really? Okay. Yeah. Wow, I had a whole other tab pulled open because I thought I picked somebody else. Because I was this was the one where I actually I thought I picked Battle Cat, so I had pulled
Battle Cat.
What? So I had pulled up a whole thing about the Mythic Legion's Cower Rose, who was based on Battle Cat. I had the whole spiel ready to go because this was the one I actually remembered my pick, but I remembered the wrong pick.
Why are there rules and then there's Ken rules?
I'm not surprised.
Yeah. So I guess the reason he's underrated is they didn't do enough to. And I'm just making this up now, like literally making it up. Like this doesn't even ring a bell like the other times you guys pulled it up. Because usually it rings a bit of a bell. I'm like, oh, that's what I was thinking at the time. This one, I'm literally like, I did not pick that. I think Adam made this up, but okay.
I'll screenshot you the chat, brother.
Please don't. That's only going to make me feel worse. So with King Randor, and like I said, I'm just making this up as I go. They could have done a lot more to expand his backstory. Like, why is the Power Sword going through a specific chosen one? Like, why does it go from King Grayskull? This is following the Mike Young or the Classics continuity. Why does it go from King Grayskull and then the other keepers of the sword are just like placeholders? Like Wundar is not an actual He-Man, but he's a keeper of the sword. Why do they skip over specific characters? Is there a reason why King Nero or King Randor could not even be a protector of the sword or a He-Man themselves? Having said that, he was, in the case of Randor, he was a warrior back in the day on his own. So why don't they expand that? Like, could they not go back in time and explore him like how they did with, I don't know, like you take some Star Wars characters, like Obi-Wan's an old man by the original trilogy, but you go back to the prequel trilogy and you start him off when he's young and you follow his journey there. Why has Randor's story never been revisited? They could, they probably should. It makes sense. So for that reason, to me, he's a little underserved and therefore a little underrated. So
That's pretty thin, Ken. That's pretty thin.
Oh, it is really thin because I had the whole Battle Cat spiel ready to go.
So Ken, are you saying you want it your way?
Right away?
Right away, all the time, every way.
Oh, for me, this figure is like highly rated. I think that this guy commands money. I think he looks like that first run. I love this figure so much that when I got my 3D printer, the first thing I printed was I printed a King Randor figure.
Nice. Of course.
Right?
Wow.
So I was like, I gotta have him. And he's not easy to come by. I got one now, but no, I think this guy is very well, I think he's highly rated, and I think he's actually underrated. I'm all in for King Randor.
Do you say underrated?
I think he's underrated. I think I think he's highly rated, but he's not rated high enough. I think he's very, very awesome.
Okay.
So what are your Randor thoughts?
Randor, my association with Randor is actually who's that? What's that?
I think that's Ken.
Yeah, that's I've got to mute my mic.
Okay, so
that's Battle Cat being upset he wasn't chosen.
Yeah. You said it was going to be me.
Sorry.
Enjoy in the background. But Ken, you said it was going to be me. Oh, dude. All right, so
I need that beer.
Whenever I think King Randor now, I think of Adam from GoFigure. Your story around King Randor really touched really touched me in a way. But so now my association with King Randor is Adam from GoFigure. I didn't have any associate. I never had King Randor. I never saw King Randor. I never thought about anything to do with King Randor. I had no thoughts or feelings about King Randor at all until your story, Adam, which has elevated King Randor in my opinion. And so I have, for that sole purpose, I've gone and pre-ordered the Origins King Randor just because of your love and association to King Randor, and how you were gifted one from a buddy recently, right?
Yeah, absolutely. A good buddy of mine, he says, I got some pieces of Randor, but they got your name on them. So it was and that's the best kind of gift for me, right? Is a project.
Yeah.
But I'm going to call Mattel and let them know that one of those sales of King Randor was because of my channel, and I should get some kickback.
Yeah,
it's definitely because of that. So I would have previously not rated him very highly. I mean, he looks cool. I'll give him that, but I just don't have any association with him. But now, I think all good thoughts and cheeriness and good tidings and goodwill from King Randor.
There you go.
He's underrated, but highly appreciated.
Beautiful. Mr. Phil, what are your thoughts on Randor?
I thought I liked him, but now looking at the chat, I'm seeing lots of people mentioning Burger King Randor, and now I can't unsee
got a Hungry
it.
Jack reference too.
Hungry Jacks, yeah, Burger King Randor. I'm the same as Zazel. I never remember coming across this character or figure when I was a kid either. So I don't have much of a nostalgic association, and now all I can see is Burger King. But he's definitely very difficult to get. I've hunted for him quite a bit online to get him in my collection, and yeah, he's very elusive. So desirable, underrated, yeah, probably, yeah.
Well, we've heard Ken's view on Randor. What about you, Mr. Dreadnought Ryan?
Well, I mean, he is the big cheese, right? And the custom was quite a whopper, personally. I could see the figure more in a Happy Meal, but no, I think it's an awesome figure.
That's my favorite.
Oh my goodness!
Sorry, I couldn't help the dad jokes.
Is the crown removable or not? Or
the armor is removable. Yeah.
The crown, he said, though.
The crown? Yeah, the crown's removable.
Epic. I did not know that. I assumed it was sculpted on.
No, it's removable. That was one of the things, was printing up and designing the crown for him. It was a bit of a trick to get it in that slot properly, but we got there.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Beautiful. All right. So we're all pro Randor, except Ken, prefers Battle Cat.
But I got it right. I said he was underrated, and then I made up a reason, and then you all said that those are bad reasons, but he's still underrated.
Yeah, no, it was my favorite thing. Ken has been nothing but consistent tonight. All right, and finally we have my man Zazel, or not Zazel. We have Island of Misfit Toys and Moss Man.
I absolutely adored this figure. The flocking on him when he came out was just crazy. It was between him and Stinkor is probably two of my favorite characters just because they were so different.
Mm-hmm.
But I think just with what year that he came out, there were so many other great He-Man figures out there that I think sometimes Moss Man just got lost in that shuffle. But I think as collectors have come back around that they really do appreciate this figure.
Yeah, I'll go the route of Slash and Toka, where I think the mold for Beastman, which is just reused here and flocked, is better on Mossman than it was on Beastman. I think it's a better use of the mold. I think that Mossman is, I would say when people come into your office, and I think you guys all get this as adult collectors, you get you collect toys. Oh, look at that. There's a Roton. Oh, you got Skeletor.
Right. Yeah.
I think Mossman gets a lot of attention. There's a lot of good memories attached to Mossman. Yeah, so he gets a lot of attention. So for me, absolutely underrated. He is a top tier MOTU figure for me.
And to go back to me giving praise to Playmates for what they did with the Turtles line, Mattel was doing some kind of crazy stuff with MOTU, with the flocking, with the with Stinkor having that just nasty smell effect. But you also Roboto and Mechanic and Triclops and Manny-Faces, just a lot of different action features that were really cool.
Yeah. Well, I think it was a result of they wanted kids to have fun playing with toys. And I don't know if that's on the table right now for the most action figures out in the store. Not to sidetrack the stream and get into that. I just feel like there was a time when the goal of all these action figure lines was to get kids to play with them and have imaginative play. And I feel like we've lost that.
Yep.
So
I agree.
Zazel, any thoughts on Mossman?
I love Mossman. Mossman was one that I had. I had the stinky ones. I loved the stinky ones. So I had Mossman and I had Stinkor. Loved it. There was. I couldn't get enough of these two. Mossman. They sort of. I don't know if they were technically foils, but they were when I was playing. They were played off against each other. Mossman, I didn't know as a kid was a redo of Beastman. It didn't occur to me. I was just enjoying the toys and didn't overthink it. Flocking on a toy back then, for me, I think it was probably other than Panther, was probably the first time I'd had an action figure. I didn't have any of the flocked hair G.I. Joe or anything like that. So I think this was my first association with that. So the texture alone, the texture of the toy, the smell, the gimmick of the smell, it also brought it right back to more of the barbarian style as well. So I like the sci-fi stuff in He-Man as well, don't get me wrong, but I think this one sits really good in a fantasy element. I love Mossman. He's top tier in my opinion, probably underrated. I would pick Mossman over Beastman any day.
Absolutely, 100%.
Great pick.
Phil, your thoughts on Mossman?
Yeah, I think I'm definitely team Mossman as well over Beastman. He's fantastic. I would love to see what Origins does. I don't think Origins has done Mossman yet, right?
Not yet, no.
No, I would love to see what they do with Mossman in terms of the material that they use. That's going to be interesting to see how they pull that together. But yeah, I mean, such an iconic and unique figure and character. I think he's great. And fortunately, my one's lost his smell now. But yeah, I do remember giving him a good whiff of, when I was a kid. It smelled great. And big Mossman fan. So underrated for sure.
It always blew my mind that he smelled like the forest floor. I'm like, how did you do that? But it was perfect.
Absolutely. Ken, what are your thoughts on Moss Man?
Underrated, and I can't think of any reasons because my brain is completely fried and shot right now. So I
5 hours
it's-
too long speaking.
Yeah, apparently 5 hours too long. No, you know what? In the Revelations cartoon, he does get a little bit of screen time, kind of near the beginning there. So I wouldn't have thought of him as being underrated until he kind of gets that action sequence, and I'm like, this is the most intense we've gotten to see Moss Man, and he actually seems to fit in that particular role. So then, yeah, you begin to see the underrated nature of him in the brief spot he has in Revelations, I think. I know I've jumped around continuities a little bit here between the original, the Mike Young, the Revelations, and the classics. All I need now is to mention the mini comics. Like I think Space Commander mentioned the mini comics there, but it comes down to the continuity. I think we got to see more of him in that Revelations cartoon, and that makes me think that he has some potential as a character.
Well, yeah, and I think any character that's an elemental like that, like Swamp Thing or Moss Man, like anybody who's connected to nature and is bigger than that, I think there's a lot you can do with them. But I just remember the commercial where you could hide this guy in the shadows and then bring him out. I was like, that's the coolest thing in the world. So yeah, Moss Man for me is underrated. I would say we have had just killer picks across the board tonight, gentlemen. In Masters of the Universe. Nice. I think they're all great picks, even though Ken forgot which one he picked and why. He still was able to pick an underrated figure. And I think that goes to what Masters of the Universe is when we remember He-Man and Skeletor and some of the big original 8, but there was such a long running line of Dynamite characters that almost anybody who's not in those original 8 is an underrated character. Now there's some like the Twistoids and all that got in the Battle Orbs or whatever that got kind of jumped the shark. But as far as like an actual figure goes, I think that it was a pretty safe run. That every figure was pretty. There wasn't very many misses in the MOTU line. So it's a pretty Extendar was a pretty bit rough, but but for the most part, it was a Dynamite line, and like I say, if you're collecting vintage, if you're collecting Origins, if you're collecting Revelation, it's just cool to see Masters of the Universe stuff out there, and it's a joy to collect. And I love that. My favorite thing I've said this before about being on the YouTube space is just meeting guys like yourselves that enjoy the space, enjoy the collecting, and encourage each other. So it's been a dynamite time tonight, and I appreciate you guys all coming on the channel.
Well, happy to be here.
What
an event this has been.
Yeah.
5
hours
success.
Is flowing by. Like,
doesn't feel like 5 hours.
It's been 5 hours at all.
No.
I think our next
5
more hours.
Our next Streamathon needs to be a fundraiser to get the wrestling ring to Zazel.
That's going to take a loan. Yeah, I couldn't believe how high that postage is going to be. I couldn't let you just send it without. I would have to pay for the postage. I think it's too much of an ask otherwise. But I would leave that with me, and I'll definitely fix that up.
Adam, I have your e-transfer email from some of your auctions that you've done on Facebook, so I'll throw a few dollars towards that.
Oh, look at that! Yeah. Look at this. We're gonna get you that ring, buddy.
Yay! Get Zazel a ring.
Get Zazel a ring. Sounds like you're like trying to afford to propose to somebody.
Yeah.
I was December 23rd, 3 years ago. A guy had a guitar. I'm a guitar player as well, and I also collect those. And he had a guitar that was worth like $3,000, and it came up on Marketplace for $600. And I was like, oh, it must be stolen. So I texted him. I was like, hey, like, what's with this guitar? And he's like, I need to buy an engagement ring by Christmas. I have 1 day to do it. I need $600. I was like, I'll meet you and buy it. So he's like, I'm taking a bath on it. I was like, I'm glad to be your water, sir.
Oh, that's nice. All right. So you got a guitar and he got a life sentence.
Exactly. He got the ring he needed. So it was win-win. But guys, this has been great. If you're watching this stream and you haven't subscribed to these other 4 gentlemen, do that right now, because all of their content is dynamite, and it's all stemming from a joy of toys. And that's the best thing that you can do on this space, is just share a joy of toys with others. We're all here because we love playing with toys as a kid, and they gave us great memories, and we want to keep that going on as long as we can. So check out their channels. It's all great stuff. And thank you guys for all being here. I appreciate it more than you know.
Well, definitely subscribe to Adam at this channel if you haven't already. If you're new here, I love it here. The opening theme song has become the modern equivalent of watching your favorite show, right? And you hear the theme song to your favorite TV show in the 80s. It brings back that nostalgia. Yours is the modern equivalent of that with your, yeah.
And he just had Toy Polloi on.
Yes, that was a great one.
Yes.
You and Toy Polloi, the two best in the business, I reckon. The two best.
That was a dream conversation. So that was fun to do. So, anyways, you guys are the best. Have a great night, and we will talk to you all very soon.
Adios.